as Jess indicated, I'm Ben Knight. I'm a biophysical marine scientist from the Cawthron Institute in Nelson, and I'm going to be presenting some work on some forecasting of bacterial plumes that we've been looking at in the top of the South Island, so Tasman and Golden Bay. Just to give you a bit of background to the project, it's a collaborative project between NIWA, Cawthron and Met Ocean Solutions, who are the kind of oceanographic branch of the Met Service. So David Plew heads up the NIWA team, and Brett Beamsley heads up the Met Ocean team. So I'd just like to acknowledge their efforts in this project. It's a shame they can't be here, but their teams have both put a lot of effort into this project. So just a bit more background around the Sustainable Seas National Science Challenge. It has goals to provide healthy marine ecosystems for all New Zealanders, and in the Valuable Seas program, which this project is located, it's focused on adding value and innovative ways to these systems. So just to let you know that this is a bit of an applied project that's come out of that program. A little bit more about my background. So I'm a biophysical marine scientist. What does that mean? Basically, I'm an oceanographer that's interested in coastal ecology and also water quality. I have a lot of in my spare time, I spend a lot of time in the water, so I'm an ocean swimmer, and so the types of things I'll be presenting today are kind of directly relevant to me. I also really enjoy seafood, so both of these things I see as very important. And interestingly, in this picture you can sort of see, this is a picture of Nelson Harbour. This is where I go swimming here. But you can see there's these sort of plumes, turbid plumes, where the water quality changes from a sort of a turbid colour to this nice clear blue. So you can see a lot of these features which are often associated with bacterial concentrations in the water around Nelson every day. So it's really neat to be able to kind of see the things that we're modelling with mathematics in real life as well. So first of all, why are we interested in bacteria? I mean, everyone knows that if you get a belly full of bacteria-laden water, it's not going to necessarily end that well for you. It can mean just a bit of an upset stomach, but it can also have some quite major effects. I just went scouring the internet for some sort of the extreme end of the spectrum. Came across some pretty nasty ones that talk about flesh-eating bacteria in Florida and things like that. And often these interactions with bacteria coming through cuts on people's skin, or in this case tattoos. So they're not necessarily just swallowing water. So there's a bit to think about how you might come into contact with this bacteria. And also, I mean, more recently there was a Vibrio outbreak in some raw mussels from the Coromandel Harbour, so quite relevant to this region, where people from Auckland potentially came into contact with shellfish that was infected with some of this bacteria. So I'm not sure, I've kept this talk fairly general. I'm not sure how many people know what a mussel farm is or what it looks like, so I just thought it'd be useful to provide a bit of background on that. So if you've never seen a mussel farm before, this is kind of what you'd see in an inshore area in the Marlborough Sound. So you just see these little black buoys dotted on the water. This is a very intense form of aquaculture. They have a relatively small area to work with, and they have quite productive waters, so they're able to farm quite high intensities, whereas if you went to some of the new offshore farms, the spaces between the lines of buoys there would be a lot further apart. And the really interesting thing that's not hugely exciting from the surface, you might occasionally see a seal draped on these buoys, or seabirds perched on them. But once you get under the water, it's quite a different story. So you've got these sort of strings of ropes suspended beneath these buoys, and quite high densities, so there can be up to 200 mussels per metre of rope, and these ropes might go down sort of 10 to 15 metres. Each one of those mussels is filtering several litres of water per hour, so you can see that if bacteria was in the water, potentially they could accumulate that. And so that's the sort of the heart of the issue behind this project. And also to give you a bit more about the beaches around the Nelson region, so we have sort of local urban beaches like you have around Auckland, Tahununui Beach, but we also have the Abel Tasman National Park with these beautiful golden sand beaches, and a lot of tourist value in having those beaches, so making them safe to swim is really, really important. So yeah, to give you a bit of an overview of this, basically the problem is twofold in Nelson. So we've got the potential for bacterial plumes to interact with aquaculture space in and around the top of the south. And if you look at the diagram over here, you can see that there's potentially some quite large areas that have been consented for aquaculture. So you could be looking at perhaps 20% of New Zealand's production coming out of this area in future. So it's a very, very valuable area for aquaculture. But as you can see in this satellite image, during flood events, these sort of turbid plumes can infringe on these areas and cause problems. So really that's the main kind of drive behind this project, is to allow the aquaculture industry to get a better idea of where these plumes are going within their farm areas, so that they can see are there areas that we don't want to touch, and are there areas that are potentially safe to harvest. So it's sort of the first step. Obviously they're going to have to go out and take measurements in these areas as well, but at least provides them a view of how land pollution could be affecting their farms. And the benefit for the beach users around Nelson is that because we're looking at bacteria, it's also relevant to swimmers in the region. So the council's been really supportive of this project and provided information along their beaches that we can use to check the quality of these models. So there's a couple of different types of pollution that we look at when we look at bacterial pollution. So there's obviously point source location pollution, which can come from like sewer overflows and spillages, say directly from, say, a boat that's tied up. That's the type of stuff that we're not so interested in. We're more interested in the diffuse pollution. So that's the pollution coming off land and runoff. So that's, just to let you know, that would be the focus of this talk. The other thing that's important to think about is we don't necessarily look for the bacteria that are causing the problems. So we're looking at indicator bacteria. So we use E. coli and enterococci as the two main indicator species. E. coli is more for freshwater bathing and shellfish. And enterococci is used for saltwater bathing because it's able to survive in saltwater for a longer period. So it's a better indicator of potential pathogens in the water. So how are we looking to solve this? So my background is physics and mathematics as well as ecology. So a modelling solution seemed like the best solution, really. And in order to do this, it's pretty complex. You basically start with a weather model on this side, and then that's used to basically predict river flows. And from those river flows, we can then link it up with bacterial concentrations and also predict bacteria in the rivers. And then to transport that bacteria along the coast, we then need a coastal scale hydrodynamic model, which has also been developed for this project. Just to give you a bit of a background to how a weather model would interact with to produce river flows. Basically, you can see this sort of catchment model with all the different branches of the river basically feeding in to estimate river flows, and it's really the river flows right at the end of the river where it meets the sea that we're interested for this project. So all this work's been done by NIWA. They've run sort of high-resolution weather models and in these catchment models. A person called Christian Zammit was sort of in charge of that area of the project. And that river model was then repeated across all the rivers in the area. So you can see there's quite a large number of rivers that are included in this model. So that interestingly, the colours on these plots, if you look near the coast, basically blue is a low flow, red is a high flow. So you can see this river here, the Motueka River, is really important in the region. So that's a bit of a focus for this project. In terms of the hydrodynamic model, what we've used a very high resolution coastal model. So the resolution, or the spatial resolution of this model is about 10 metres along the coast. And if we look into some of the estuaries, you can see some of that detail. So it's small triangular elements that are used, so it can vary in size from quite coarse at the boundaries of the model into very fine scales. So we thought that was a really important choice of model, so that we're able to tell people what's happening at small scale beaches, basically. So a model without data is really just an opinion, so there's a lot of data going into this model as well. So we're really lucky in the top of the south that we have two operational buoys, one operated by NIWA and one operated by the Cawthron Institute in Golden and Tasman Bays. And both of these are located quite close to some of the large offshore aquaculture areas. So it's really good to be able to check that the mathematics is doing what it should. There's also a lot of free satellite data that's available, which can give us information on temperature. Also, the aquaculture industry is continuously checking for bacteria around their farms, so there's a lot of information available there. And the council's also checking beaches to make sure that the quality of the water around those beaches is safe. So with all of that body of data, we've got a lot of information we can check. And at the moment, at the stage of the project we're in, we've basically finished all of the mathematical work and we're just in the process of marrying up that data. So unfortunately, I can't report the results of that today, but just to let you know that due diligence is going on. So what do our models look like? So basically, they've set up a framework. MetOcean Solutions have set up a framework in their MetOcean View system, which is quite a technical platform, but allows mussel farmers to go in and look at their individual farm and see how a plume in the next day could influence their harvesting decisions. So we're basically modelling a day into the future, and a farmer can load up this model the day before they go out and start to plan and say, right, are we going to harvest the inside lines or the outside lines of their farm, for instance. And the idea is to kind of transition from a rule-based system that's just based on the river flows at the moment to this more spatially explicit approach. So it's still got a bit of validation work to go, as I explained, but we're there from the technical side anyway. So. And for the swimmers, obviously the spin-off is that we can also deliver this information to them. So we'll probably take a slightly less technical approach for the swimmers. They really just want to be able to bring up a map quickly and see is it safe to swim. So we've basically developed a prototype platform that the councils can pick up and adapt for their needs. So we have two councils operating in the Nelson region, Nelson City Council and Tasman District Council. So basically if those two councils want to get together and improve on this prototype work, they can do that, or if they want to do their own sort of custom thing, they can also take that away with them. So what? So we've done all this work. What does it mean? So basically we've looked at the current closure criteria, and at certain periods, basically the mussel farms can't harvest for months at a time. So that has knock-on effects to the factories, which means they can no longer process mussels. So people that are on contracts basically can't work for that period. So it has a big social impact in these relatively small communities. So what we predict is if 10% of the production time can be increased, then that's worth millions to that industry, particularly as it grows into the future. Obviously, by swimmers being able to access information on the quality of the water, they can make the decision not to swim, and we hope that will decrease the illnesses that are seen in this region. And the other thing that we hope will happen is people will become more aware of the issues. We can actually show what catchments are potentially causing the problems where people swim, or what problems they're having on the aquaculture industry. So we hope that can provide a sort of up the river approach to improving the water quality. So it's hopefully we can move to something that's more like this beautiful clean waters in future. So just to give you a bit of background to what's available in Auckland already, I'm not sure if many of you have heard of Safe Swim. So that's basically a project that looks at sewer overflows, so those sort of point source impacts of on bacterial pollution. So they are a very, very important problem in this area, but there's also the potential for diffuse inputs as well from rivers. So I think there's potential for some of the stuff that we've been developing in our project to go into the Safe Swim project. There's also a lot of aquaculture around Auckland, so you've got some really famous oyster farms, so like Cleveland Coast oysters. So I think there's potential there to extend what is a swimmer-based system to aquaculture as well. And just to give you a bit of an idea of how that looks around the Auckland region, I just brought up some satellite images from Auckland last summer, and you can see there's quite a bit of turbidity in the water around the Auckland region. And turbidity, sort of a rule of thumb is you shouldn't really swim in water where you can't see your feet in knee-deep water. But obviously, if it looks like that most of the time, then you might not be swimming. So I think you can do better than that, and basically, hopefully extend some of these techniques we've developed in our project to the Auckland region. So as a summary, obviously bacterial pollution is a serious issue. We have some new tools that can help you understand it better, and hopefully with people power it can lead to better water quality in future. That's the end of my talk, so thank you very much for listening, and I'll pass on to my colleague Lincoln Mackenzie. There'll be questions at the end, by the way.